Good evening. This is the Dania Beach City Commission workshop regarding the Dania Beach Grill. It is Wednesday, May 8, 2019 at 6 p.m. Can we please call the roll?
Mayor Llewellyn.
Here.
Vice Mayor Odman.
Here.
Commissioner Brandemart.
Here. Here.
Commissioner Harris. Here. Commissioner James.
Here.
City Manager Garcia. Here. City Attorney Ansbro.
Here.
Okay, as you know, we are here to discuss the Dania Beach Grill tonight. Before we get started, I wanted to say a few words, and I know some of the other commissioners may as well. Can't hear me? Can you hear me now? Better? Okay. Before we get started, first of all, I just wanted to welcome everybody here. I anticipated that we would have a big crowd tonight. I know everybody really cares about the Dania Beach Grill. We all care about the Dania Beach Grill, and that's one of the reasons why I asked that we have this commission workshop. We wanted to make sure that everybody got a chance to hear what's going on. There's a lot of rumors that are out there, and I want to make sure that there's some transparency here so everybody understands what the facts are, and we're not just basing everything on rumor. So there's a lot of questions, and we're going to try to get to the answers for those tonight. We have a presentation that's going to be given tonight, and we will likely ask some questions up here. When we are finished with that presentation, if all of those questions that you all have are not answered, I can assure you that after the meeting, there will be people here to try to answer those questions for you that you do still have. And that would include Mr. LaFerrier, the city manager, myself. I'm not sure who else from the commission will be staying, but there may be some others that will be staying as well, and some other city staff as well. So just so that you're aware, even though it's not going to be a question and answer period for everybody in the audience, there will be an opportunity, if your questions are not answered after this presentation is given, to ask those additional questions, okay? So with that, Vice Mayor, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I did. I had a couple. Can everyone hear me okay? All right, thank you. Again, I also want to thank everyone for coming. I said several times that I realize this is not just an issue of buildings or violations or property, that this is an issue of history and of emotion. And that's why so many of you are here tonight. And that I realize it's how important it is that you all are here. And I know how much it's affected so many of you. And I appreciate your emails, even the ones that are angry. I appreciate that you bothered to take the time to reach out, because that to me says you at least felt that we were going to respond to you, and you believed in us, that we were going to give you some answers. And I hope that happens tonight. Are we going to have time to answer some of the questions, to read some of the questions?
Absolutely. We need Mark to do the presentation that he's going to do, and once he's finished, if there's still some questions that need to be asked, we can absolutely ask our own questions.
Okay. So for those of you who emailed me your questions, I will make sure that those are all asked and answered, and that there are none that are left up in the air. So there's nobody here that, if you submitted a question, should not have a solid answer, and I will absolutely be behind afterwards if any of us or myself missed the mark on that. So again, thank you for coming. Any other commissioners want to talk before we start?
How long is this presentation? Because I think hearing from the people is more important than anything I'm going to see on a wall. But how long is it? Huh? 15 minutes. Set your clocks, all right, guys? Anything over 15, we pull the plug on it.
Commissioner Harris, did you have something to add?
No, thanks to everybody for coming tonight. Thanks for the input, and thanks for your participation. I really look forward to hearing what you all have to say and what the facts are.
Okay. Wait, Commissioner James, go, please. Go.
Yes, I probably was the one that was most hated and cursed out on the internet. I'm Tamara James, and was responding to most of you all. I do want to thank you all for being a part of this public forum. I think it is very important, and I thought it was very important, that we at least lay out the facts associated with this establishment that so many of us loved and love. And I hope that you could understand by the end, because we are all every day still learning new details on things with this establishment. So I hope by the end of the presentation and at the end of this meeting, you put yourselves in our shoes as we have put ourselves, at least I have, in your shoes, because this is a place that I have patronized a lot, and I've built a relationship with Kellen and with a lot of the residents and even the patrons from other cities who are just as important as the residents, because you guys are the ones that are spending money in our city. And so that is very important to this commission, and we don't forget that for a single moment. We just want to be able to lay out all the facts and tell you all the plans that are here and how we got here and pretty much where we go from here. So thank you all for attending.
Vice Mayor.
I'm sorry, I forgot this. Aside from the questions that were submitted either through the website or submitted to the email, I also want to give an opportunity, perhaps after we listen to Mark's presentation, if Kellen, or I don't know if his mother's here as well, either want to speak. I want to, even though we're not going to be doing a back and forth dialogue, this has been his baby, and this is why it's such an emotional issue. So I do want to give him an opportunity to speak if he wants. And so after Mark's presentation,
Actually, I think we were
perhaps-
going to do it before Mark's presentation.
Okay.
I was going to ask for that.
Either one. So
Okay. City Manager?
Yes, good evening, everyone.
Can't hear you.
Good evening, everyone. I too, totally what the commission and the mayor has said resonates with all of us, and I want to thank all of you for being here and staff for not just putting the presentation together, but for doing the research and being able to provide the facts to you. I've been your manager for a little bit over 6 weeks, and one of the things that we started to do, based on my first meeting ever, March 14th, the day after, was really make an assessment of all our facilities, our personnel, our needs, to ensure, first and foremost, that what we're doing is aligned with best practices and that our parks, our restaurants, and our facilities are safe. Because at the end of the day, putting our children or putting any of you in harm's way is something that we never want to do. So with that said, I'm going to turn it over to the mayor. So when we're ready to present.
I actually wanted to see if Kellen did want to speak. If you would like to come up. No? Okay.
he wants, I think, Mark to speak first. So.
That's
Okay,
fine.
go
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor. Can you hear me? Okay, how about in the back? No? Good evening. There we go. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioner, City Manager, and members of the public that are here tonight. I want to thank you all for being here. You've heard our commissioners already say and our city manager that we appreciate how much you care about our beach and you love our grill. And tonight's meeting is really intended to be a public information meeting so that we can kind of get some of the information out. I know a lot of you are here because you love the beach grill, and there's also a lot of questions that haven't been answered yet. I'm hoping that I can answer those questions. If I don't do it in the presentation, then I'll be able to have questions from the dais and answer those questions. What I'll tell you is that we know a lot more about the beach now, the beach grill now, than we did just 60 days ago. And there's still more to learn. This presentation I have isn't going to be conclusive, and it can't be conclusive because there still needs to be some investigation about the repair of the building itself and how we implement that beach grill concept in the future of our beach. I think we all recognize that given today's situation with the environment and sea level rise, that beaches all across the United States and especially Florida need to change. And the city has been responding to improving the beach and making the beach resilient to future storms and sea level rise with a more recent master plan that we're going to be working on and getting adopted that we've had public meetings with, where the concepts relative to the beach grill are kind of thought out a little bit further about what would be the best practice for our beach grill and the beach. So with that said, I've got a little PowerPoint presentation. I promise it'll be 15 minutes. I'm looking at the clock now. We all recognize the beach grill, and it's been enjoyed by many for over 70 years. The best information that we have is that it was built by the Salvino family back in about 1945 to 47, in that time frame there. And it originally started out as just a hot dog and Coca-Cola stand with an interior dining room and a walk-up open window. All of the other things relative to the outdoor seating that was added much, much later. And actually, some of the comments that we heard from the public was that they didn't want to see any more concrete structures on the beach. It's interesting to note that actually the original building that's still there today is a concrete structure. What's there in cladding is all the wood that makes it look so Key West or so beachy-like. It's loved by many, but there's a lot of activity going on at the beach, and it's changed over the years for a period of time now. The city actually took the beach back in 1935. We bought it from the city of Hollywood in a pretty good land deal, almost as good as a sewer deal for Alaska. And there's been a number of changes over the years. It started out as just this little spit of land between the intercoastal and the surf. And over the years, there's been various number of people that have made improvements and various number of plans that have been on the beach. I think the plans that are going forward now are the ones that will be most resilient and the most sustainable. Some of the things that have happened most recently would be the addition of the pier. You know, I'm looking back a few more years, but it's good to put it in the context. The pier restaurant or the quarter deck. The Beach Grill was the first real structure there. And then, of course, the marina and the new bathrooms and the new improvements from the Phase 1 master plan, which includes the beach portal at the north end of the beach and the Dockmasters building. It's important to make note of those different structures around the beach because those are actually revenue-producing structures. The Seafair building was actually built by the Dania Beach, or the Dania Highlight Corporation was later given to the city, and that was used now as a research facility by FAU that we lease out to there. All these different structures that are there are all being used by the public for various reasons, and they're all revenue producing. It's important to note that because the improvements that will be needed on that beach so that it's sustainable and enjoyable in the future will need to have some revenues in order to budget the funds to make those improvements. Back in 2014, and a couple years prior to that, the City Commission then decided to prepare a master plan for our beach. It would be the first time that the city had done that. And the master plan was pretty comprehensive, and it really looked to making the beach more sustainable. What it did is it moved moved back the parking lot so that we could expand the beach area westward, create green spaces between the beach dune and the parking lot, and so that would help us be resilient to future storms, and also in the green areas allow for activity areas. It also showed that there would be redevelopment areas, not redevelopment, I'm sorry, hold on. This isn't going to work for me. Nope. I apologize. There we go. It also showed an enhancement of the quarter deck and the pier that would be planned. It also shows an area down by the north part of the beach for activities. Some of those activities are going on today. It also showed this little day dock across from the pier into Whiskey Creek that people could use, and there would be a future concessionaire there. The first step that we did follow through on was re-nourishing that dune along the entire shoreline. That was important so that we could withstand the future storms. We did build the beach portal on the north side. Oh, I'm so sorry. We did build the beach portal on the north side, and that's sort of prototypical of what we would see if this plan was implemented across the way with these portals so that people get access to the beach. Down by the grill, you can see here that what we showed was an event space. That was an event space for things like concerts, yoga, things like that. The grill is in that location. It's a rebuilt grill. I'll explain that in a minute. And you can see that we plan to reroute the traffic so that it's a much more organized traffic system with perpendicular parking and more parking on the south end of the beach. What we recognize with this plan is that there's too much utilization of the beach sort of on the north end, and that we had plenty of opportunity to use the south end, but we needed parking down there. And this is what, at that time, the beach grill concept was going to be. We had architects and engineers help us with this study that we did in 2014 that was adopted by the commission. And at that time, when we looked at the beach grill, we recognized that that building was reaching the end of its life cycle, and that it was in a state of deterioration at that time, and that we needed a plan for a better utilization of that space. And you can see what we did in this case is we moved the beach grill a little bit to the south, but I think what's really important and most enjoyable to everyone would be that we moved it to the east, and we removed the roadway so that you could walk from the beach right up to the grill. Then back on sort of what the lease agreements and the tenants have been recently. The most recent lease tenant was Louis Dumas back in 1999, where they signed a lease that had a term that went to February of 2014. That was extended another 5 years, and it was assigned to the Dania Beach Grill, Inc., which is the current, who was the current tenant. And that lease ended back in February of 2019, but they've been on a month-to-month assignment since that time for March and April. The current lease amount is approximately $2,700. Now, something that's very important to remember, and it'll be a part of all of the next slides about the condition of the building, is that as a landlord, the lease states that we're responsible for maintaining the structure, and that structure is defined as the roof, the exterior walls, and the floor slab. Remember I said that the original building was really just a concrete structure that was the roof, the floor, and the 4 walls. The tenant is responsible for all the MEP, which is mechanical, electrical, and plumbing components, and all the other structural elements not responsible by the landlord. So when I show you the slides, we're really not trying to lay sort of any kind of blame or responsibility on any party here. This is an informational meeting. We want people to understand is the condition that the building is in and what needs to be done to repair and renovate it. I'm sure that the condition of that building, and particularly things that the tenant was responsible for, may have been deteriorating for a number of years, long before the current tenants. This is our beach grill today, and this is under the title Recent Events. You know, we all know that it's closed down. It's kind of a sad picture to see. Yeah, understood. And there's been a number of inspections that have occurred over the years, and we only backed up, the last 10 years or so. But with every business, and particularly restaurants in every city, there's an annual fire inspection. And that annual fire inspection really kind of gears towards things that would be either a fire hazard or that might hinder any kind of evacuation of the building or any kind of suppression of any kind of fire. They aren't a very comprehensive and long list of the different components of a building or the MEP or even the structure. So the fire department was out there during the last, many years, and they found, sometimes they would find violations, sometimes they wouldn't. They would note them, and the tenant would repair them. There's also health department inspection reports that occurred during that time, something the city is not responsible for, something that the city doesn't enforce, but it's certainly a part of the quality of the experience and the condition of the building and the operator. And again, there were multiple violations that were found over the years, some of them due to food handling and operations, other those as to the conditions of the building. But then back in 2016, there was work that was done out there without a permit, and that came to our attention. So that we went out there and we worked with the tenant to make sure that they got all of the permits for all the work that they did at that time. So there were a number of different violations that were found then in 2016. That date up there is wrong. But then as we began to come near the end of the lease term, remember I said it was in February 2019, the city attorney asked us to go out and with our building inspectors and not our building official, because this isn't typically the responsibility of a building official or even the building inspectors. They really work for the city for the purpose of making sure that new construction and renovations by permits are done properly according to the Florida Building Code. But in an effort to help out, we went out and we did our own comprehensive inspection. That's when we uncovered some of the issues that later become so serious that the building had to be closed down and it was unsafe for occupancy. So that was in 2018. That's when my department really got involved with it. We hadn't been involved with it prior to that. And at that time, I began a dialogue with the tenant at the beginning of the year about trying to get the building to be fixed up. And we tried to work together with the tenant so that we could. But as we looked at the building more and more times, we began to recognize that it had deteriorated to such a state that it could no longer be open. And I'll show some pictures of that a little bit later on in our slide. But about that same time, we got a new city manager. And the grill and its condition was just something that was being looked into more seriously. And when I talked to the city manager about this, she asked me about the condition of the other city buildings. And I advised her at that time that I wasn't aware that there was any kind of comprehensive inspection that was done on an annual basis or any kind of reporting that was done on the city buildings. And that even though the beach grill's conditions might be some of those that might be more concerning, but we don't have that type of information on all of our other buildings. So she asked me to initiate a program whereby that we would go and inspect the buildings on an annual basis and document any safety and maintenance concerns that we have. Now, we've started in on that process. Prior to that program becoming, there wasn't really a database even for the city's buildings. So what we're doing now is we're building a database. We're mapping all the city's buildings, all the city's properties. We're following up and we're determining whether or not we have the plans for those different buildings, if we have any engineering inspections that were done, if we have the permits for the work that was done over the series of the years, so we understand the value of those buildings to make sure that they're insured properly. So it's a very comprehensive approach that we're undertaking to make sure that our buildings are going to be safer and ready for the public, and so that they're going to be maintained properly so that there's better enjoyment by everyone who goes into a city building. So far, we've done the Beach Grill, the Nyberg Swanson, the Frost Park, and C.W. Thomas. Nyberg Swanson, we found some issues that will need to be remediated. Frost Park and C.W. Thomas are those that are newer buildings that have a lot more maintenance and care given to them. We found less issues and problems. On the right side, you just see a map. I mentioned earlier that we mapped out where those buildings are located. I think this is very important to note because this way we can kind of stay ahead of some of these issues and we can even deal with some of the deferred maintenance and we can make them a part of the City Commission's budget on an annual basis. But just to back up for a minute, so when we recognized with some of our more recent inspections by staff that the issues at the grill were much more serious than what we thought, the building official at that time said that he wanted to have the support from an engineer, a full engineering report. So what Calc Engineering did is they went through and they did a visual check of all of the different components of the building, photographed them, and then wrote up line by line what all the deficiencies are in that building. There's a phase 1 report for mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. There's a phase 1 report for structural. And then he was just recently hired for a phase 2 structural report. That phase 2 structural report is the one that isn't completed yet. I have some of the preliminary information. And the phase 2 structural report will tell us more about how we can repair and rehabilitate the building and how much it would cost and how much time it would take. Remember at the beginning of my presentation, I said we have a lot of information. We don't have it all in yet. When that report comes in, we'll be able to really begin to make a serious discussion about what's the next thing to do with the Beach Grill. But right now, it's about what the conditions are and why this building had to be closed down. It's important to note at this juncture that even though the building official works in my department and I work for the city manager and the city commission and the constituents of Dania Beach, it's important to note that the building official has a special priority in state law. It's promulgated from the governor's office, the state's building code. He is, by that law, given a certain amount of autonomy and independence so that he isn't influenced by either business or his hierarchy or by politicians. And why is that? That's because we need to be sure that our buildings are going to be safe. And he has to be able to do his job and feel comfortable that his job can be carried out in ensuring that buildings are safe. And if you think about that, the modern building official with modern building codes have been pretty marvelous. I'm in the business, so that's going to be my feeling. But if you begin to think about it from a very objective perspective from the distance, buildings rarely blow away in hurricanes now. Mexico City got blown away last year because it was a big hurricane. But our South Florida building codes are different than the building codes in.
Can you please refrain?
And the point I'm making is that our South Florida building codes, and this will be important for you to know later on too, our South Florida building codes are some of the toughest in the world. Only California and Florida are, those are the two toughest in the state, or in the country. And that's because we have hurricanes and we have earthquakes to deal with. So those building codes and the implementation of those codes have made buildings safer, both for everyday use and in the case of disasters and problems. Calc Engineering, this is the results of the Calc Engineering report in a summary, and I'm going to apologize for reading them. Calc Engineering recommends, and the building official concurs, and the building official has the authority to close an unsafe structure, replace intake and exhaust ducts for the kitchen hood equipment. This is for the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. That hood equipment is what's needed in order to be able to use the kitchen at all. Remove and replace all corroded electrical and mechanical components. Corroded electrical components create unsafe electrical conditions. Most all of the outlets, switches, and wiring and panels were corroded to either a significant extent or to the point that they're barely usable. Removal of all unstructured loose wiring and providing an approved wiring system. There were a lot of, hanging extension cords and different things plugged into an extension cord, plugged into another extension cord. What that'll do is that'll overload the system. And when the system's already corroded, its capacity is greatly diminished. And with outdoor conditions, it could have been a very unsafe condition. All mechanical equipment must be connected to a dedicated electrical circuit. You know that in your own home where you plug in your stove and it's got a special outlet that it has. It didn't have that here. All kitchen and bar exposed hand sink drains must be replaced. They were leaky and they weren't working properly. Upgrade the electrical main disconnect, grounding wire, and conduits. That goes back to just an unsafe condition with all the electrical system. Rewire the panel circuitry in an organized and dedicated order. Over the years, there were a number of changes that were made to that panel, and that was done without a permit and without an inspection, without an approval. And then provide electrical panel requirement clearances, so there was a lot of storage and things like that near the panels, where if there was a problem with the electrical circuitry, that it could create a fire. Here's some of the examples of what we have. The corroded outlets, wiring, and extension cords, and no dedicated circuits. I mentioned that. You can see in this picture in the kitchen where that occurred. The main disconnect, the meter can corroded. You can't see it in this picture as well, but if you look back behind the main disconnect, the meter can, you'd know that it was corroded. So was the electrical overhead service. That was corroded. These are very high voltage portions of the electrical system. And that's dry wood on the outside of the building. Here's the panel boxes I mentioned earlier. They were corroded also. I mean, to some extent, we understand it's a location that's on the beach. The woman's bathroom door, this is another condition that it had that's not relative to the electrical system. The woman's bathroom door width was not handicap accessible. There's a rooftop equipment that I mentioned earlier. It's been corroded, and if you could see how the connections are made to the roof, you know that that's in pretty bad shape. That roof, by the way, was a new roof was installed by the city about 4 years ago. So that's the ventilation system for the kitchen there. The griddle and fryer gas connections were in bad condition also. So that kind of summarizes some of the mechanical, electrical, and plumbing issues that were there. And then on the structural side of it, it was more extensive. There was probably about 58, I think it was 58 MEP violations that were found. On the structural side, there was about 162. Now, structural just doesn't mean the four walls, the roof, and the floor. It means everything that is of structural in nature that's not mechanical, electrical, and plumbing. So there's a number of things in any building that's structural related. And here's a summary of some of the most significant things that Calc Engineering recommends and the building official concurs. Remove and replace all the awning structures around the building. All the existing structures are unsafe and must be replaced. Remove and replace all the wood fences and the wood deck structures outside the building. Replace all of the wood benches and seating in front of the restaurant, which are not safely attached to the decking system and require repair. Repair the broken interior and exterior concrete walls and the broken and damaged concrete tie beams and concrete tie beams as soon as possible. Repair, replace broken and damaged doors, windows, and framing. Remove mechanical units on the roof that are not safely attached to the roof structure as soon as possible. So there's some things there that are life-threatening in their current state, as was the electrical system. The awning system that's there, I'll show you pictures in a minute, could have easily blown away in today's storm, and if any of us were out there sitting under the bar that day, that awning system would have been on our heads. The mechanical equipment up above could have easily blown away and taken part of the roof with it and landed on someone that was nearby. The concrete tie beams are something that are very critical to have in better condition than they're in, and they need to be repaired. And over time, they could have failed, reached their threshold, and failed. And then the wood benches and the floor, those have rotted to the extent that they're absolutely no longer safe for anyone to stand on or be on. Here's the example of the, I hate this thing. Those of us that have been out there will recognize this arrangement where there's one of the main members of the awning frame has been broken.
Ma'am, if you continue to keep talking out of turn, we're going to have you removed. So can you please let the presentation continue and let him finish? Thank you.
This is a situation where the awning original structures had begun to get corroded, and then it was, without permit, it was, another structural element was added. Actually, that structural element wouldn't meet the code at all. It wouldn't have protected any security in a storm. It wouldn't meet any wind load requirements at all. You can see that the fascia board is beginning to fall apart, and that isn't a structural, it is a structural element of the building. It's not a structural component of the building that holds the building together, but there's other things that are connected to that fascia board. And the things that are connected to that rotting fascia board would easily fall or blow away. Another example of where the awning is rotted to the extent that it's unsafe. This is some broken and damaged floor surface that needs to be repaired. And you can see up here, and this isn't, I mean, I'll tell you, the Salvino family did a really good job. Thank you. Because this has been here for about 75 years, and this is the amount of deterioration that's occurred. This is going to be repairable. But it's an extensive amount of it. You can see it right here. This is the ceiling, and this is the juncture between the ceiling and the walls. Oh, I'm sorry about that. This is a picture that shows the corroded connection to the roof for the ventilation system. And this is the exterior portion of the tie beams, and you can see what's happened is the cement it's called spalling. Anytime a little crack occurs on cement, or there may have been a juncture, and especially out in the near the ocean, there's salt air. It'll slowly work its way in. Concrete is one of the strongest building materials, but believe it or not, it's still porous. So unless it's properly maintained, it can corrode, the rebar can corrode over time, and that's what's happening here. And this is actually a pretty important issue to deal with immediately. If that's got deep corrosion that goes back underneath the roof, then that could mean that the roof could reach a threshold where it could collapse. These are the seating that's out in the front and around the bar grill building. And all of this wood seating is old and deteriorated and very unsafe and will need to be replaced. Same with the stairs. The conditions of the grill are at the extent that it really isn't safe for anyone to be there at all. And so on April 11th, the building official declared emergency action. He said the emergency action needs to be taken based on the 2017 Building Code, Section 116.5, to ensure the safety of the public and the employees. I'm requiring, as the building official, that the Dania Beach Grill be closed until the necessary repairs have been made to bring this building back to a safe condition. The emergency of the repairs identified in the engineer's report, that was the calc engineering report that we summarized earlier and showed you pictures of, shall be done as expeditiously as possible. So upon reading that report, I called the tenant and made him aware of the fact that we would be there later in the day and explain what the issues are with the building, and that the building could no longer be open and it had to be closed temporarily for repairs. And that's the condition that it's in today. I mentioned a little bit earlier that it's going to be important to sort of understand the regulatory framework for building anything out on the beach. You can see the beach grill is located here. Come on now. And that little red line there is called the coastal construction line. You know, the buildings that we build sort of up here, up on the mainland, I guess you'd say, there's some pretty significant building codes that we have to follow, but they're state and city building codes that are followed. When you build east of that red line, that's the coastal construction line, there's also federal requirements that come into effect. And the rationale and the reasoning for it is significant and important. It's understood that this area has the highest winds from hurricanes. It has the most corrosive air. It's most susceptible to flooding. And in order to make a building safe, it has to have special building codes. And there's layers of approvals that have to be permitted in order to rebuild or reconstruct or even repair some buildings out on the beach that are located east of the coastal construction line. They mostly deal with sort of how resilient the materials are and how strong the resulting methods are, and also the flood elevation of the finished floor. The existing grade that's out there by the grill is at about 4 feet. It's actually very low. And in order to build it to meet the standards with either a new building or possibly the repair of this building, that building would have to be raised up 10 feet to 14 feet. And I said 10 to 14 feet because actually the kitchen can be lower, the dining room can be lower than the kitchen. So so a new building would have to be raised up. If the repairs are so significant, the rehabilitation of this building is so significant, it'll trigger that standard and the building would have to be raised up. The other thing that it involves, as I said earlier, is different methods and different methods of construction in different materials, so it can be more resilient to storms and floods. Now, one of the things that I want to explain a little bit about repair, because I want people to understand this. It's not going to be the same as repairing your house. And I mentioned why, because it's east of the coastal construction line, and it has to be raised up. It becomes very problematic to do that, and the evidence that we have recently is the beach bathroom. Those that go to the beach, they see the beach bathroom that's between here and the quarterdeck on the beach side. Some of the storms that we've gotten recently expose the fact that when we rebuilt that bathroom, we had to put it on pilings to the bedrock. We didn't have to raise it up because we got an exemption. It took a long time to get that exemption from the federal government to leave the slab where it is. Otherwise, it would have been 10 feet in the air. Can you imagine going to the bathroom? You'd have to walk up a ladder. So we were able to get an exemption. We might be able to get exemptions like that here, but we don't know that yet. And then we had to rebuild the entire we had to rebuild the entire structure because actually the cement in that structure had deteriorated to such an extent that it couldn't just be patched up and repaired any longer. So in this case, what we'll have to do, and I've done this out in the sound mitigation area, west of the airport, there's some homes there that are low-lying, and the value of the home is low, that I've had to declare those a repair condition based on public health and safety. There's a provision that allows us to move forward, but it has to be approved by the federal government, whereby you can repair a building like this if it's in a need for public health and safety. Otherwise, we'd have to probably tear the building down. So we don't know whether or not we'll be able to repair it yet, but here's how the calculations work on this. Those 275 items that the engineer found, that the building official reviewed, and that the building official concurred with, those 275 issues that were found that I showed you a couple pictures of, those will have to be deemed a violation for the purpose of public health and safety. If they're deemed and approved for public health and safety, to be repaired for public health and safety, then we can do those repairs, and those repairs are not counted towards what's called substantial improvement. Substantial improvement is in the Florida Building Code, it's in the FEMA regulations, and it's also in the CCL regulations. And what that says is that if your building's deteriorated to the point where you have to spend more than half the value of that building to renovate it, then you can't renovate it without bringing it up to code. And of course, this is all different for every different building, what that's going to mean. But in the case of this building, if we can get the repair approved as for public health and safety purposes, then that means half the value of this building could be applied towards renovation of the building. The building, the way it is today, is only valued at about $220,000. Now what that means is the city could only spend $110,000 to renovate the building. We can repair it. We can put new wiring in there. We can patch up that concrete in there. We can even put the deck around it and the awning. But you'd have to put the old kitchen back in, the old bathrooms back in, and the old bar back in. You would have to, when you built the new decking, you'd have to build all the new furniture. That would be rehabilitation or renovation. It wouldn't be a repair. So we'd only have about $110,000 to actually renovate the building. And a kitchen, a good kitchen, with the right fire suppression system that would be meaningful for this structure. It's about a 1,500 square foot structure. Somewhere in the neighborhood of about $60,000 to $70,000. So you can see we would have already used up about $70,000 of that $110,000 just to put a new kitchen in there. So even though we love the grill too, you know, we get it. I stop at places like this all the time too. I enjoy them too. And I know that the music's great and it's a great venue. I just want everyone to know how difficult it will be to repair and renovate this building. I don't have cost estimates yet. That's in that second report. But I expect them to be rather significant. And I also expect that it won't be a timely process to repair it either. So that's why when we looked at when the beach master plan in 2014 was adopted, we recognized that it was nearing its life cycle. We also recognized that there's an opportunity to do something that might be more in tune with the environment and much more resilient. It's important to know that if we do repair the beach grill, that building still won't be resilient to the storms and to the flooding that we know are going to be more common now. Sorry. That kind of sums up my presentation. I hope I answered some of the questions. If I don't, I'll be up here and I'll be back there to answer whatever questions there are.
Thank you, Mark. It was a little longer than 15 minutes, but it's okay.
How much longer?
Appreciate it. We've got I know we have a few questions from the dais, so Commissioner Brandon Marty?
Yeah, Mark, I didn't understand something, all right? When you put that red line up there and you showed us the red line versus the ocean, and you were talking about a law or something that came about then, just curious, probably nothing to do with right here. Is that the same, did that law also apply to what happened during that hurricane in New Jersey? Like where the homes were, like my aunt's?
Yeah, I mean, the coastal
she's
construction
90
line,
years old, and she had to have an elevator.
yeah, the coastal
I'm
construction line
thinking they're crazy.
is a national law.
That's what I want to know.
Yeah.
Is it that same law
Yeah.
that forced
Well, I don't know if
New
it's the same
Jersey-
law, but I'm thinking it's going to be the same law because it
Well, then I
raised it.
then I understand
Yeah.
why it has to be that many feet, because they all just got back in their homes, and how many years is that?
No, it's back in
So
Sandy, wasn't it?
I just didn't know that
Yeah.
came down this far.
Yeah, that runs along every shoreline in the United States. It's regulated from the federal
That's what I wanted
government.
to ask about that, because I was
Vice Mayor?
confused.
All right, I'm going to go straight to the resident questions. So is there any responsibility of Dania Beach to fix any of these issues, any of the violations or the issues? Any responsibility that we have beyond the 4 concrete walls, the concrete floor, and the concrete roof?
Right. And this is going to be just my initial opinion, this after talking with the building official and the city attorney. A more detailed analysis would be needed to make
Yeah,
it
just
very
the
specific.
best that you can answer.
But the only thing that the lease requires us to repair would be those concrete walls, floor, and roof. And out of the 287 comments or issues that were found by the engineer, there's only about 24. They are significant, but there are 24 comments.
Understood. Thank you. For the next one, is there any option for this to be declared a historic landmark?
Well, that has been looked into by the state, the county, and the city in the past. And it wasn't, by either one of those agencies, deemed to be applicable for designation as a historic structure. Here's why.
Just a quick reminder.
Because it is
a quick
old.
reminder for the audience. The questions will be answered, and
Yeah.
we know what your questions are. So
I
don't
got
worry.
you.
Okay.
I got you.
I mean, it is an old building,
Uh-huh.
and there could be a local designation that could be sought.
Okay.
But a county and a state designation and the city's own code says that a designation would occur if it's a contributing building in a historic district, which there's not a historic district. It has to be the location of a historic event. It has to represent a style of architecture that's unique and significant to the community. And it has to be built by a founder or someone of importance of the city or was home there, like the Nyberg Swanson House. Yeah.
Everybody, please. We're trying to
Now,
answer the questions.
it's
We can't have you yelling.
Now,
at
it's
us.
important to know, and I love, I've been historic preservation director in various jurisdictions. I love historic buildings too. And this one's pretty cool. I think it's important to know that just because something's deemed historic, it doesn't mean that it has to be saved. And a lot of times they can't be saved. I'm not making that statement about this building now, but the conditions of this building have deteriorated to such a significant extent that a lot of times that's why historic buildings aren't saved. So it doesn't mean a building will be saved. It means that it can be saved. It means, thankfully, it does mean that it has certain building codes that apply to it because it's a historic building. So it might help us during the repair process.
Okay, so that's still something we could look into, looking at it as a local designation.
Designation, that's
Okay,
right.
so while we are going to be looking into all these other things, that is something else that we can look into.
Yes.
All right. So when, on that day, when everyone came with the fences and the metal signs, it perhaps appeared to some people that this had been pre-planned beyond that day. Can you speak quickly to what was the time frame from when you were notified by the official that it had to be closed to
Yeah.
when you went over there?
Yeah. When we moved forward with the engineer to do the detailed study so that we really understood the condition that was in so that we can make the best decision, he was able to come out and do the inspection and then bring us a report in a week. We read the report the day that he brought it in, and we went out the same day. His recommendation was that it needed to be closed as soon as possible. The building official said the same thing.
And this was, just to be clear, this was a Broward County building inspector had nothing to do with with Dania Beach, the commission, or any of our,
Well, it's our city building official.
okay.
Yeah, he is a county employee. We contract with the county.
And
With
let me
the
just
county.
follow up on that real quick. Also, the inspection was done a week earlier, correct?
That's correct.
It wasn't done the same day
No.
as when the individuals went out with the materials to board it up. Okay.
And I personally was there when we went out with the building official. I was personally there many, many times, multiple weeks prior to the closing of the building, because we knew a couple weeks in advance the condition of the building, and we were concerned. That's why we hired the engineer.
Okay. My remaining questions all really fall into those categories, so thank you for answering those, Mark. Does anyone else have any questions, Mayor?
It's going to may sound like a silly question, but there have been a lot of rumors out there, and I seem to keep hearing the same one over and over again. And that is that we have plans to turn this into a parking lot. Oh, I just heard it last week. That's not true, correct?
No, actually, to the contrary, both the plans, the one that was adopted in 2014 and the one that the commission has worked on, the public has had public workshops on, and we've gone out and done public outreach on, both those plans show that actually this space here doesn't become a parking lot, it actually becomes a green space. It becomes an event space for things like music and activities and things like that. The other thing that's important to know is neither one of those plans ever envisioned, nor was there ever any discussion about putting a condo or a hotel there.
And all of those plans, there's a vision basically to have a place like the Dania Beach Grill there.
Absolutely.
Correct. Okay. And well, whether it's the Dania Beach Grill or another place just like it, but there are plans for having a Dania Beach Grill or something like it there.
That's correct.
There will be a restaurant, there will be a beach bar, that sort of thing. Right. Go ahead, Commissioner Brandamari.
Yeah, and also, Mayor, to add to that, if I recall, we even said something about putting even it up higher, another kind of deck up, so that you can see the ocean instead of it being all blocked by the hairy stuff. I call it hairy stuff because it don't look like grass. But we're figuring if you're sitting there and enjoying a beer like I do, I would want to sit on a higher stool, on a higher level, and be able to see the ocean. So I know that also was discussed in that master plan. Am I not right, City Attorney?
Yes.
Hello?
I said yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Thank you.
City Manager, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yes, I wanted to add to what Commissioner Brandemart is saying, that both plans actually have less parking, less concrete, more green space. Both plans have the grill to elevate it up to get a better view of the ocean. But if you elevate it per code, you can actually get a view of the sunset, because the plan would be to make sure that you add to the beautiful deck area.
Any other questions here? I know that we had actually talked about this back in January because the lease was up for the current tenants for the grill, and we had discussed an RFP, and my recollection was that in that RFP, the discussion was, I think all of us agreed that we wanted to keep this a beach bar, a beach restaurant, where people could go in casually, go in comfortably, keep the prices lower, and do that sort of thing, where the current tenants could also bid for it as well, but that the lease was up in February. Is that still the current status of this?
Yes, the lease expired on February 15th of this year. At that point, the commission directed to let the tenant remain on a month-to-month basis. We tried to get a written month-to-month contract with him. We were unable to do that. We were having difficulty meeting with the tenant to identify tenant improvements that they would do in the meantime, so it never got signed. But under the state law, it still exists as a month-to-month lease. It doesn't make much sense anymore under the circumstances to keep a lease. They're not going to be able to pay rent for property they can't use. So we'll have to deal with that in the very near future. But it's called a tenancy at will under state law. It's a month-to-month lease. They're only there for 11 days, I think, of April, and they won't be able to occupy the property. Also, I began to draft up what we call an RLI, a request for letters of interest. similar to the one we use for the quarter deck restaurant. The quarter deck came out and built to suit based on a former restaurant that was there. And I used that same model to begin for the beach grill, until we got eclipsed, of course, by circumstances beyond everybody's control.
Just a quick question on the repairs. Are there any of the one of the things that really concerned me when I saw the report and I saw the things that needed to be done was the electric. The electric makes me very, very uncomfortable. Corroded wires are dangerous. People are coming in there in bare feet. You have bands that are plugging in speakers and electrical instruments into corroded electrical sockets. I mean, that to me says somebody could get electrocuted very easily, or the place could go up in flames. Is that something that could be addressed more quickly than other issues? I mean, I'm trying to see if there's some way that we could do like part of the issues and still be able to reopen it, or if that's not a possibility.
Well, I mean, it's going to need a whole new electrical system. It's really pretty much all corroded out. When you do that, that triggers a lot of other things that have to be done too. We've been lucky that there hasn't been an injury out there, particularly because of the electrical system. So if you piecemeal like that, it would still be an unsafe structure. So you'd have to deal with it. You'd have to deal with pretty much everything that was identified in the report to make it a safe structure to reopen it.
Vice Mayor?
Mark, are there any options that, you know, this being closed has left a big hole in the local community and in the music scene? Is there, sort of to piggyback off a little bit what the mayor said, is there anything that can be done in a temporary way to satisfy that need, to bring perhaps to that area some degree of the counteract crew to be able to perform, for there to be some provision of food and some beverage? Is there anything that we can do in that space, even if it's on a temporary basis or contract?
Sure. If that's something that the commission wants us to come back to you with, you know, I would work with the manager and with Eric Brown, our parks director. I mean, we see examples of it elsewhere in South Florida. Hollover Park has a food truck event that's very successful. It's a beautiful event. And like they invented the food truck to go on the beach in California, in Honolulu, or in Hawaii. And there's temporary venues that could be done there, sure. There will be a cost to that, of course, because there really isn't a place set up that would be an enjoyable venue. So it would take some additional costs, but we could look into that and bring that back to the commission if that's what they would like.
Yeah, if you could bring us back a cost estimate for what something like that would be. So maybe some food trucks, maybe for a stage space. I don't know, something along those lines, and then we could tweak it from there and see if it is something that is the will of the commission, that we could come to consensus to. So that in this interim, you know, from what I can tell, my takeaway from this workshop, I only got this yesterday, the whole bulk of this, and only had a certain amount of time to really digest it all. This is going to take a while to chop it up. Whether it ends up on the way some of you want, whether if it ends up on the way maybe some other people want, this is going to take a hot minute. So in the interim, let's find a way to get some people either back to work. Let's find a way to get some people jamming again. Let's find a way to get some place for everyone to get together again and have a drink.
Just to piggyback on that as well, I would also suggest that even if it's an expensive proposition to do something like this, maybe we could do it on a part-time basis, like weekends, say Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Well, just because, you know, I'm just, you know, trying to figure out a way to try to make it available, at least temporarily, at least on a partial basis, so that the cost isn't over the top. That's all.
Well, when Mark brings it back, we could probably
tweak it.
Right, tweak it and
Right.
see what makes sense, and to most importantly, see where we could come to consensus on.
Right. I mean, I think food trucks would be a great option. I think having a little space for music to be played would be great. And I'm sure that we can do something like that. And it would be and you know, lunch and dinner. I mean, those are things that we can do. Breakfast too. And ways to do that, so that it's, but obviously we need to see how expensive it is. And if it turns out to be something that is more exorbitant than we were anticipating, then at least looking at it on a temporary basis for a shorter period of time each week, as opposed to doing it 7 days a week, and maybe looking at the busier times. I mean, we know Dania Beach Grill on a Friday or Saturday night, you can't get into the place. So, that's trying to give something to the community so that we have an option for that. Commissioner Brandemarty?
Yeah. What's important to me is that it isn't what you want to call picking on the grill. That showed the problems right there. How many of you know of a place here in Dania, if you're from Dania, called Lorenzo's? There she is, right? You all know Lorenzo's. Oh, the rest of you don't. Well, welcome to the city of Dania Beach, and I want to explain something to you. Mark, where are you? Mark LaFerrier. Oh, right here. I was looking. I'm sorry, Mark. I was looking at that lady going over here. Mark, a man walked into Lorenzo's. Now called the 80s Club. Have you gone by the 80s Club lately? Okay, let me tell you what happened there. You don't even think about the grill on this one. Guy walks in there, closes it down 1.5 years later. He's still not open. And that was only for a kitchen. It wasn't about the wires or the handicap or a roof that's held together by shoelaces. All it was a vent, Carol, over a stove. And I fought, and I fought, and I fought. Well, he only just opened, but a little bit too late because now he's closed again. But for more than 1.5 years for a vent. Was it the same man that went inspecting around here?
No.
Oh, I was wondering if he's got Dania Beach on his mind.
No.
Oh, okay. But Lorenzo's, and ma'am, you from Salvino's ought to know, how many years was Lorenzo's open? How many years? 40 years. And it took us 2 years ago to close it. Why? All for a hood over top of a stove. So if you hear rumors we're picking on him and his mom or anything like that, believe me, it ain't about that. They mean business when it comes to if somebody gets electrocuted, you don't get sued, we get sued. And especially with all of this evidence, I don't even want food trucks down there. And I'll tell you why. I'd rather wait and give you something great to have down there, like I see my vision with seeing the ocean and all. I got a good vision for down there. But I can't see putting food trucks down there either. We already have other tenants there.
Commissioner James?
Hi. Well, I'm going to be very real with you all. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you a story. I'm not going to sit up here and let you all believe things that are going to be very hard to accomplish. As the Vice Mayor stated, every day we're receiving new information on this. I sat today in a more than an hour meeting really digesting all these pages that we have in front of us, so we can really have this conversation with you all so we can understand it to the magnitude that our staff understands it to be. I asked the question, how much money will it cost to help rehab this building so that we can put a Band-Aid on it for now, as long as it is safe, until we have our RFP, until we put a shovel in the ground, until we upgrade what is currently there. They told me as an estimate, not figures, because the next round of the inspections are coming back any day now, but as an estimate, the minimum is $500,000. Now, I want to explain to you all something. I was entertaining and I was just as optimistic as everyone else that is sitting here that we will be able to, give you all what you want down there on the beach. Because I don't care what city you're from. You're spending dollars here in Dania Beach, and we really appreciate it because we aren't anything our economy, and what is driving our economy is our beach. So the Dania Beach Bar and Grill is very important to us. However, I asked how much it was going to cost. Minimum $500,000. I asked what is at the greatest, if all the stars were aligned, unicorns and rainbows, what would be the minimum time that it could be open? The least, like in a perfect world, more than a year. Because you have to understand the extent of all of these violations. They are costly. They aren't as cheap as I thought they were coming into this, even before today. And you have to understand, are we as a commission, and this is something that we still have to talk about and decide, because all of us want to give you what you want, but are we going to invest? And the city's portion of that $500,000 will probably be minimal. So are we going to invest the money that it takes to reopen an establishment that is very old, and we already approved in 2014, but before any of us was sitting up here, the commission approved the plan in 2014 to bring you an enhanced grill. That was before the tenants and Kellen and his mother even occupied this space. A plan was already passed. This isn't a city's trying to take over and do. We don't have a benefit of not even getting rent every month. We're taking a loss. So at the end of the day, if it's going to take over a year, if it's going to take over $500,000, is it financially responsible for the city to spend over, that's minimum, $500,000 to repair an old building when we're going to have to build a new one? So I don't know what the plan is for the interim or whatever else we can come up with as a commission in order to, allow you all to have the recreation and entertainment that you want. But to sit here and promise you all or even engage with you all that we are going to repair a building that costs over $500,000 to rebuild, I will be telling you a lie. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to send you out here with false hope. I'm not going to tell you that it's going to be repaired. When he comes back, this is the second inspection. It might be more expensive than the first. So I am going to work with this commission to see how we can move forward. But if I'm being really honest with you, from my perspective, patching up, and would you spend $500,000 in patching up a new home? No, we would not. We absolutely would not. And I know it hurts to say, but that is the reality that we are sitting at right now.
I believe Callum wanted to speak. He raised his hand. Did you want to come up and speak now?
Since a lot of comments, I don't know if right now is the best time to do so. Thank you very much.
Okay.
It's the right time.
Do you want to?
It's the right time.
You're welcome to speak afterwards if you'd like.
Hi, my name is Kellen Barth. This is 65 North Beach Road, Dania Beach. If you want, we can go over every topic that Mark discussed as far as like me. This isn't about defending anybody or understanding what's going on with the structure. Everybody knows the structure's messed up. Everybody knows there's issues. I got a memorandum of 18 pages, and that's the last thing I ever received from Mark LaFerrier. He waived this book of over 300 violations that I have not even read yet. For me to go about that, what I was trying to do from the last meeting that we discussed or that we had together. I was trying to, put pieces together and work with Mark personally. I gave him calls every single day for the last 2 months, trying to figure out how to remedy this problem myself, on my pocket, my pennies that I use, like my paycheck. And I was doing this and that, trying to, catch things up. Things were looking really, really, really good. And then April 11th at 12:30, him and all the not the commissioners, all the officials came down. They said, we got to shut you down. And he pointed up to the structure itself and stuff like that. And I agreed. I said, okay. We did discuss this last meeting, what was going on, going month to month. I understand that. I was trying the best to keep it up to speed. These violations that I received, that were my responsibility, were discussed with me and Mark. Now, I hired a GC that wasn't capable to do the job. He was a friend of mine. It didn't work out. So right after that, I went to Joe from Dakota Construction, who you guys work with very, very closely. And I said, Joe, can you help me out? He says, I will look at everything and I will talk with Mark. I will make sure that we have a list of things we got to do, but I will not touch anything until everything is like up to code. That the city has to get something done to fix this, the structure. Electrical, we talked about it. Yeah, it's going to cost 50 grand. I did 3 years ago put in an entire system of GFIs. That is, if you have an extension cord and rain were to hit or anything like that, it'll trip the GFI and cut off the power. That was for you. You guys initiated that to me, so I spent $1,000 to put those in through Joe from Niscola and talking to Mark. That was 3 years ago, and that was all they was asking me to do. And then I got a memorandum, slats, painting, this and that, windows, the doors. There was a lot of small issues that when you're there for 5 years, you're there every day, you kind of don't really see it. You look over it, you're not thinking about it. And as far as having, a corner of a room and there's something there that you're overlooking, and there's a picture. The pictures I got were black and white. It doesn't look good, you guys. It doesn't look the best, but it is, it's all right. It's not, what they've taken a picture is not supposed to be who did this and who did that, but it seemed like it was to me. Whenever people kind of get restless and they get, it's a dig. It's not because people are just upset and they want to get the right answer. They just, that was more or less defending yourself against defending me, and I didn't really care for that much. Again, we can go over all this and this who said, he said, she said. It's not about this. It's about understanding what's going on. When the beach diver came by and he says, okay, they did the revitalization of the beach. And I was there every day. The hurricane hit, put a rip in the canopy. The revitalization process was going on really, really well. You had an irrigation system going in. You got the steps going in. The hurricane hit. And then there was a tropical storm right after that. All the taxpayers' money, what I seen every day was not really much to make that any better. Then you put the steps in. It took over 8 months to do them steps. I had people 70, 80-year-olds, no offense, but going to the side of it, jumping off onto the dune to get down to the beach, and it took 8 months to fix that. When we had a perfectly good little step over the dunes, it was cute. I built that little back oasis that I did get fined for, but I fixed it. I got a Gene Bieber or whatever architect come in and take care of that. But I had that going straight up to that dune, straight up and over, so it was a beautiful in and out from the beach to the oasis, which was dirt and weeds pretty much. It didn't look very inviting at all. And sorry, I was young, I was silly, I was unorthodox, I should have got a permit beforehand. But I did it to make it look pretty. I do a lot of things that aren't by the book, and I truly, truly apologize. I apologize to everybody else. I just wanted to make it fun, and I wanted to make it better. The last 5 years has been a hurricane. It's been the bridge going up for 8 months. It's been those steps. It's been parking. It's been weather. Yeah, it's $2,700 a month for rent, but there's property tax. You got to pay your employees. You got to pay for your liquor. You got to hope every day is going to be a beautiful day. But it's just not. Coming after Labor Day, we can be hitting, and I talked to you guys about this in January. I mean, we could be hitting $200 a day, but that has nothing to do with anybody. It's a beach restaurant. People go to the beach. I don't care if you put up Margaritaville. 3 months in, when it's when it's not super cool and new anymore, it's still the beach. And the people that are here for a reason, they're here because they've been here for years. They see what's happening in Hollywood. You guys see the problems. You're going doing something with them next week or something, the beach cleanup. We've been doing that for 2 years. First Sunday every month. We've just been doing it. We don't promote it. I don't advertise it. I call it the best kept secret on the beach. Why? There's a reason why. I don't want to go to Hollywood. Neither do they. I don't want to go to Fort Lauderdale. Neither do they. And if you think you're going to make $2 million a day off that thing, you're sorely mistaken. And if you think the brand new deck and you think new picnic tables to be screwed down, it doesn't make any sense to me. I think live music, I think a $2 beer and a damn good meal, and you're right by the beach, I think it's a pretty perfect place. To give everybody the option, to give everybody the understanding of what you guys are trying to do is the same thing we did a couple months ago. To give everybody, here's all the violations. We understand that. I can talk to you guys about that. They don't need to know. They need to know when it's up and running, what they're going to do, where they're going to enjoy a place to have a beer. We're going to enjoy a place to get a burger because that's what they moved here for. That's what they grew up with. That's what they understand. You take that away from them, then I don't know what else you want to take away. You got the Dania point. You know what I mean? You got everything you need. I don't, to have this beach, to keep this for 50 years, Good luck finding that on any east side, any east coast. And for a building that's 36 by 36 square feet, I think we can beat $500,000 to fix that. And even if it's tough for the city, it's still the taxpayers' money. I think that's everybody sitting here right now, isn't it? No, it's not? Part of it is. I'm not trying to prove a point, I'm trying to figure things out. You know, as far as going down the line with, you know, all these violations, let's fix those. Let's get it done. But when I got $1 to my name, I do it in my own money and I get the boot. When I thought that weekend was going to be it, I had JP Soares, I had Firetide, I mean, the most perfect weekend. It was that weekend. April 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th. It was that weekend. It was going to be killer.
Kellen?
It was cool. But 12 o'clock got shut down, so it sucks. I can sell what I want. I just want to figure this out. I don't have the money. I think these people can help out. I don't know what to do.
Thank you.
We're shut down. I miss it. I'm standing here trying to figure out a way to be open by tomorrow. If you guys want to do that thing, I put in I talked to Mark, I talked to, my attorney talked to Tom Ansbro. The day of, I tried to get a permit to do live music, to keep that weekend music alive. And I had porta potties, I had a $10,000 stage, lighting, mics, power, generators, bathrooms, food trucks, everything like that. I had that ready to go when I got shut down that day. It was almost a $20,000 project to be ready for the weekend. I needed 60 days to get a permit, but it only took me 1 day to get shut down. I don't understand sometimes. And this is the second time I've ever talked to you guys in person, like as a group. I'm new to this. I don't know what I'm trying to say, but I'm just trying to speak my voice. If you guys got time to talk, I can go Q&A all day. And we can get to the root of the problem.
We can talk Q&A after we're done with the meeting.
I know, but I want these guys here too. I thought that's what this
fine.
workshop was all about.
And that's fine. And that,
I didn't know if it was going to be like this, and you guys had all the power.
It's an
I just wanna speak my
informational.
mind.
It's an informational workshop. It's an informational workshop,
We
and
do
we're
like
giving you an
a,
opportunity to
like,
speak here now. But we need
Kellen versus Lori lunch meeting or something like that? Or
no.
You can't do
We're going back
Anyone
into
want
things from way back in the past.
Because I
at this
haven't talked
point.
to anybody since that meeting last time. I really haven't. And nobody's asked me any questions. Nobody really has. I never really, like, you want me out, I know that. You tell me that every time I'm here. Everybody sees that. You don't want me there. But, like, I'm being honest. Like, I'm a human, you're a human. You could be my aunt or my grandma. Or my sister, maybe. Huh?
We want it safe.
Yeah.
I know.
They give me the opportunity, but I can't
Okay,
do
we're
that
going to
much
wrap
more,
it up
can I?
now, please, because now we're just kind of, it's just becoming a bit out of order.
You know, way over 15 minutes with Mark.
I understand that, but now we're just kind of, this is more of a ranting.
Ask
at
me a
this point.
question.
So,
Kel, let's go over
Kel,
there when the
let's go sit
meeting's
over
over.
there.
The
We'll all
back
chat.
table. We'll hold
Okay.
Kellen's back table.
Thank you.
I'm in. 10 minutes. Well, the meeting
Okay.
will be over. We can do
Yeah.
it all day long. But up here, we have to have some sense of order. That's why we had it
correct.
publicly noticed that you were to email or to send in your questions. So to be fair, you know that you were given that information. But Cal, if you want to go out there, you know I'm not going to run and hide to my car. We can go, and we can go answer those questions, and whoever wants to join me, we can go.
And actually, a workshop generally doesn't have any citizen comments at all. We wanted to give you an opportunity to speak because you're the tenant and you've been sitting here, and we wanted to give you an opportunity to speak, but we need to move on and we need to address some of the comments that you've made as well, okay? Okay, there's a table of information out there about the history of the bar and grill as well, so if anybody wants to see that, we do have that out there. Just question.
Sure.
The building as is a public safety hazard, correct?
Correct.
Okay. It is not a safe structure for people to be in.
That's correct.
Okay. It's going to cost a significant amount of money to correct any sort of deficiencies that are there.
True.
You got to speak up a little bit.
Sorry.
Too far away.
Yes, that's true.
Okay. And it is going to take a significant amount of time to make those corrections, correct?
That's true.
Okay. I mean, what we've been hearing from you tonight, and Commissioner James mentioned a number of $500,000 to fix this, and we also do have a parks plan that we're working on at this point. There's already been approvals that were made in the past, and there's a new plan that's been coming forward that's similar to the past one. If you were to make $500,000 worth of repairs right now, that would also include renovations, yes? Or is that just repairs?
No, that's just the repairs.
And then the
It basically will come down back to the Salvino building
Right.
of the 4 concrete walls.
All right, so it would be $500,000 worth of repairs, and then at some point down the road, this may not even be the same building, correct?
Well, it wouldn't, I mean, it depends on how it's repaired and how it's renovated. I mean,
Okay,
that would be a decision the commission would make.
all right. Was it Vice Mayor, did you have a comment? Nope.
I'll be out there.
Okay. Commissioner Harris, did you have something?
I mean, where'd he go? Kellen,
He's walking away.
can't he in the short time do something at Dania After Dark, like bring the music and bring the people and there's something that could be worked out if we're going to do a something down at the beach or something. I'm just putting out ideas. It's not impossible for Kellen to do a tent at Dania After Dark once a month to keep his music alive and keep his people coming back to him. It seems reasonable, but as a public safety hazard, it's not reasonable to do it there. But possibly you could do it somewhere else.
I mean, these are not small fixes.
They're not.
There's
and it's
a
not
lot.
ADA compliant either.
No.
And then the meeting that we had a couple of weeks ago at the Department of Environmental Protection in Tallahassee, they suggested moving the center line of the beach back. So there goes another whole plan because of the environmental hazards in the sea level rise that they talked about. We were in a room full of engineers, and that's what they were telling us. You can't do it like this anymore because of sea level rise. So. There's
think-
all kind of things to consider.
I think the point that we need to make at this point is just to remember, we're concerned about the safety of the people in this city and the people that come to this city. This is not a safe structure. Like I said before, one of my biggest concerns when I looked at this was if you plug something in, and you have live music all the time. If somebody plugs in one of those amps, the place could go up. I mean, it's just not safe. And we don't want to see anything bad happen to anybody here or anybody in the city or anybody anywhere. And the only way to make sure that doesn't happen is to deal with these issues. So we're trying to deal with these issues. We couldn't keep the place open. It could not be kept open. That was by an emergency order after a thorough inspection was completed. And we're trying to find a solution to it. We're working our way through it. Nobody wanted to see this happen. But the bottom line is it's just not a safe place to be. It's not a safe place for anybody to be on a regular basis. I know you love it. I love it. I go there myself. But the bottom line is that we can't keep a place open that isn't safe for the public. Does anybody else have anything else to add? Mark?
No, thank you.
Okay. With that, we're going to, Commissioner James?
I know I said I wasn't going to stay around, but I'll stay around for a few minutes. I see a lot of your hands in the back. So I'll stay around in the back for a few minutes. I know our Vice Mayor is going to stay around for a few. We have multiple people staying around for a few. And hopefully one of us could address your questions that you have.
With that, we're going to adjourn, and we will, like I said, we will be here. I know Mr. LaFerrier will be here. I believe our city manager will be here. I will be here. I think most of the commission is going to be here, and I'll stay as long as you want. Thank you.